Today we're going to learn a few new topics. So your notes had you learn about the supply and demand models and consumer surplus and producer surplus. Today we're going to look at that in the context of specific points. So we're going to find the equation of a line given 2 points. We're going to use that equation to construct a graph. We'll then use the equations to find the intersection of the two lines, putting that point on our graph and labeling it as our equilibrium quantity and price. And then we're going to find the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. I have an example for us to go over together, and then a problem for you to try on your own. So point slope form, I'm going to use P and Q instead of Y and X, since the variables we'll be talking about here are P and Q. So we're going to have P, just our variable, minus our specific price at a point, equals our slope times our quantity, the variable, minus our quantity at a specific point. And before we use that equation, we have to find the slope. So to do that, we're going to do the difference in our P's, our prices, divided by the difference in our quantities. So given a demand schedule formed by the points quantity comma price, so our X is the quantity, our Y is the price, we've got the points 0, 80, and 50, 50. Find the equation for the demand schedule. So this means the equation of the line. So we've got the point here, I'm going to call Q1 P1 and Q2 P2. So let's go ahead and use our equations above. I've got my slope. It's going to be equal to 50 minus 80 divided by 50 minus 0, or negative 30 divided by 50, or negative 3/5. Then P minus P1, P1 is 80, equals negative 3/5 times Q minus Q1, which is 0. If we distribute the 3/5, P minus 80 equals negative 3/5 Q. The 0 times negative 3/5 just disappears. Move the 80 to the other side. That guy gets out of town. So this is going to be our demand schedule. So I'm just going to put demand here, and then QD for demand. All right, we're going to do the same thing now with our supply schedule. So we've got our Q0, P0, I'm sorry, Q1, P1, yikes, and Q2, P2. So my slope, got difference in my P's over the difference in my Y's. Then I use my point slope equation. So I've got P minus 0 equals my slope, 2 times Q minus 0. This one's quite simple because the zeros just go away and we distribute this 2. So our equation for the quantity, the supply, yikes, it's going to be equal to 2Q. And that's our supply quantity. All right, so let's remember those two equations as we go down here. we've got our P for demand. It's going to be equal to negative 3/5 Q plus 80. And our price for supply is equal to 2Q. All right. So now we have to graph these 2 points. So I'm going to make it go by tens. And our price is always going to be on the vertical axis, and our quantity is always going to be on the horizontal. So we need to label our axes as well. All right, we're not going to be sloppy here. All right, and that goes off your screen, but it says quantity. All right. So our y-intercept for the price of demand is 80. And then we go 3 down and over 5. So let's go 30 and 50. So that would correspond to it when I did it 10 times. So down 30 would put me at 50, right? And over 50 would put me here. You could also get those 2 points by looking at your original points on the first page, right? Because those are the 2 points we had in our original. So if you wanted to find them that way, that would also be okay. Then this one we had the point 0, 0. And 30, 60. Those were the 2 points we were given. So let's go ahead and construct our lines. So this downward sloping one is our demand. And the upward sloping one, get it? Yep, is our quantity. All right, so we can't easily read that intersection off of our graph, so we're going to have to find it by doing some math. All right, but the math isn't too bad. So we know that that intersection occurs where our price intersects, where our 2 prices intersect. So where PD equals PQ. So we can substitute in our equation for PD, negative 3/5 Q plus 80 equal to 2Q, our equation for the quantity. That's a Q. All right, then we move our variable to the same side. So I'm going to have 80 equals 2Q plus 3/5 Q. I want to have like denominator, so I can add those. So this is like 2 over 1, so I'm going to multiply this by 5 over 5. So I've got 10 over 5Q plus 3 over 5Q. So it's going to be 13 over 5Q. And that's still equal to 80. All right. And we can multiply both sides by the reciprocal, and that'll cancel out the fraction. So multiply by 5 over 13. 5's cancel, 13's cancel. And we've got Q equals 5 times 80, 400. Divided by 13, or about 31 if we round to the nearest whole number. And then we have to find our price, so we can use either equation to find that price. So if we use PQ, we have 2 times 31, which is 62. So our equilibrium quantity and price is going to be the point 3162. So if we're looking at our graph, this point where they intersect is 31, 62. Right, and we're going to label that by going down to the vertical axis, down to the horizontal axis and labeling that Q0, and going across to our vertical and labeling that P0. The 0 just means our equilibrium, our original price and quantity. All right, producer surplus and consumer surplus. I'm going to sketch a graph, and then I'll just do the math up top where we can see the earlier part. So we're going to have our demand curve and our supply schedule. Right. The equilibrium price and quantity. So consumer surplus is equal to the price you're willing to pay minus the market price right? And it's if you add all of those together, and then the producer surplus is equal to the sum of the price, the market price, minus the price you're willing to make it for. The firm is willing to make it for, so willing to produce. So what does that look like on our graph? Well, we get to draw two triangles, and then we're going to find the area of them. So our bottom triangle, this area here, is our producer surplus. And the top triangle, I'll do in blue, is our consumer surplus. So we're going to have to use our area equation for triangles to figure out what these consumer and producer surpluses are. And remember, the area of a triangle is equal to 1/2 our base times our height. So that's what we're going to be using above. So first, let's just write down number 5. Area equals base times height. I'm sorry, 1/2 base times height. So we've got our top triangle here. Remember this point, 3162. All right, so that's going to be our consumer surplus. And then we've got the bottom triangle. Oops. And that's going to be our producer surplus. So we'll do our producer surplus first. We're going to have 1/2 times the base. So the base goes from 0 out to that point, 62. So that would be 62 long. And then our height goes from 0 up to, goes out from 0 to 31, yikes, for our base. And then our height goes from 0 all the way up until we get to that 62. And now let's look at the consumer surplus, and then I'll calculate both of those. Consumer surplus, well, how tall is that? It goes from 62 up to 80, so that would be 18 for our height. And then we've got our length here, our base is still going to be 31. Do that, you're going to get 279 and 961.